Hey guys, so I wanted to make a video today about the state of Path of Exile 2 Dawn of the Hunt and talk a little bit about and weigh in on all the, I don't know, drama about the release of this update and talk about my thoughts and opinions and experiences. Now, today I spent about 12 hours playing the game, and I am currently a level 41 Bleed Amazon. Yes, I spent about 12 hours playing the game, and that is where I'm at. And part of that is because I spent a lot of time kind of like trying to figure things out, experimenting, respecing here and there, trying to figure out what's good, what's not. But also, a lot of time I spent doing this is because the start of Huntress is just tough. Like, it's a tough class to start off with. It really does require you to really update your gear, be knowledgeable about how to make your character stronger, and not only just worry about your weapon and offensives, but also take a little time to take care of your defenses as well. And if you're doing that, I'm sure you're going to have a pretty good time doing so. But even if you are doing that at the beginning, like a way beginning where you're first starting, unfortunately, you just can't avoid that because there's just a lot of requirements to make Huntress do damage. Like, you need a parry into some sort of retreating attack, into like a frenzy charge, empowering your explosive spear, something like that. Like, doing basically a lot of things to get a little bit of payoff at the end. And I think that really is kind of the story of Huntress, at least at the beginning, and maybe even later on in the game, where it's just you have to do a lot of work to get the damage out, and that is tough. And it's a playstyle that Path of Exile players and in general ARPG players just aren't very used to. So as a result, everybody is struggling. And I also do think that the class can be tuned up a little bit as well because it is feeling a little bit weak. Now, for me, I played the Bleed Huntress at the beginning and continue to do that right now. And I would say that if you were playing Bleed Huntress and you used Rake with Stomping Ground, congratulations, you are going to make it through the first and second act pretty much flawlessly. You're basically going to do it very easily. That's going to carry you. You really don't even have to do much, just put a little bit of strength here and there, and it's going to carry you throughout the first and second act. Third act, though, it's going to start falling off from my experience, but your mileage may differ depending on your gear and such. But yeah, that's kind of the situation with Huntress, and I feel like it really is because of Huntress that the game kind of feels really tough, because the class requires so much from the player and also takes quite a bit to ramp up as well, that the game feels that much harder than before. Honestly, I don't think that the game is that much harder than before. If you were to play, let's say, a warrior or a witch, a monk, whatever it may be, one of the older classes, and not play spear, I really think that you're, for the most part, going to be cruising through the game. Especially if you're playing some sort of, like, I don't know, league starter build, something that's very solid, not very experimental like the new weapon classes. I think you're going to have a very, very good time. Now, this leads me into another point, because I think that there's something to be said about the fact that the Huntress class was kind of a tough start, because everybody was going to be playing the new class. Of course, every single game a new class comes out, people are going to want to play that class. So I would have expected them to put in a lot of time to playtest the class, make sure that it is not in the state that it is, where it is extremely tough to play, and make it so that people are going to have a good time. Now, here's the thing, right? I understand what they're going for. They want to go with kind of this combo system, right? They've kind of always been trying to do this combo system with Path of Exile 2 and trying to make it not like a one-button playstyle. But I really think that it really was a huge leap from this first patch, the first season, let's just call it, of Path of Exile 1, into the second season, to go from, like, one-button playstyles like Ice Strike Monk or Spark Stormweaver, and then you go into this Huntress right here, where you have to press like 4 different buttons to get one attack off. I understand that that's kind of the playstyle that they want to go for, and I'm not going to blame them for it, but I do think that they kind of messed up in the fact that you basically threw the player into the deep end without really kind of giving them the ability to learn how to play the class and just get used to this new playstyle. And yeah, I think that was basically one of their biggest mistakes, and the reason why the game is the state that it is right now, or at least perceived to be in the state it is right now. Now, enough of my rambling. Let's go into my character. So I am again a level 41 Amazon heavy boy over here, mostly into strength and dexterity because that's what our skills use. So our ability wise, we are pretty bad right now. It is not looking amazing, and you can tell that in the gameplay. I just keep dying over and over again to mobs very, very easily. A lot of that is because of the inherent squishiness of the Huntress, but also the fact that I am not using a shield and I'm using a buckler does not help out at all. I would recommend most people who are playing Huntress to use a shield unless you are using the parry itself to go and generate frenzy charges, or it's like a core part of your gameplay. Just use a shield. It's going to make your life a lot easier. But yeah, right now we are using Rake as our main DPS skill. We actually got a less jewel orb, so we were able to 3-link it. We got brutality, heavy swing, and momentum on it. Before this, I was just using brutality and stampede, or stomping ground, sorry. And that was taking me through mostly Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. It felt like it was kind of falling off to me. Maybe you guys might have a different experience, but that's what it felt like to me. So I ended up getting some level 2 support gems, and I replaced it with heavy swing, and I also replaced it with momentum. Still kind of considering changing this one out. I don't know, but that's what I am using at the moment. Damage wise, it doesn't do all that much damage. As you can see, the DPS numbers are pretty dang low, and we don't even have that bad of a weapon either. So Rake is going to be a tough skill to level up with, starting at, I'd say, Act 3, unfortunately. I'm still trying to figure out how I'm going to be continuing to scale this throughout the acts, but that's kind of the current situation right now. Of course, we combine this with our Herald of Blood, which we have put Lightning Infusion and Magnified Effect on there just for a little bit more damage. I'm sure there are probably more optimal setups, but really Herald of Blood is just there as a little bit of extra damage and also to be there to aggravate bleeding. So that's kind of like what is going on there for the main combo. We also have Explosive Spear and Blood Hunt. Explosive Spear is really there just to proc some of those, like, oh, after you do a range attack, you do more damage on melee attack. We just kind of had to use this for that. It's also a nice little bit of extra DPS. So we have Overabundance on there and Martial Tempo. The reason why I have Martial Tempo on here is because a lot of times I'll be throwing stuff and I'll like dodge roll or something like that. And as you can see, you can cancel out of this pretty easily if you just kind of do it in quick succession. So that's why we have Martial Tempo on there, just so that we don't waste our Spirit Throw when we're throwing it, because it's kind of a long animation, unfortunately. So that is why we have that set up right there. And our Blood Hunt, I would say this is really just there to help support our single target damage. We don't really use this too much when we're doing AoE and mobbing. That's just pretty much taken care of by Herald of Blood, and that's kind of what we do it for. It's, you know, we have the little bit of the blood loss, and you pop it, does a little bit extra damage. It is what it is. That's kind of what we use it for. So we have Pursuit and Bloodlust on there. Now, overall damage, as I mentioned, just not that great. And I am honestly a little bit disappointed with this whole blood loss mechanic, because I was expecting it to be like, oh, we do a lot of damage over time, and then the Herald of Blood is going to have a big boom and do a lot of damage. Then the Blood Hunt is also going to do the same thing, where you do a big boom and do a lot of damage based off of blood loss. But one thing I figured out is that, unfortunately, there is a limit to how much you can hit an enemy with blood loss. There is a upper limit. Unfortunately, it's not like, you know, you hit an enemy and the bar, just every tick of bleed damage it takes, it kind of accumulates. Unlike what it says right here, all physical damage taken over time, including accumulated blood loss, right? Unfortunately, there is a limit to it. And as a result, you can't actually do a lot of explosions. Your Herald of Blood doesn't do that much damage. Your Blood Hunt itself doesn't do that much damage. So as a result, the bleed kind of mechanic just isn't as strong as I thought it would have been, unfortunately. Kind of a disappointment, but I'm hoping that this will change over time and become better. Yeah, those are our skills. Skill tree wise, we are currently doing this where we are going down the top, going through the projectile damage and melee damage. Eventually, I will probably take the accuracy, but we aren't really doing that yet right now. We're going down, taking this way all the way down, taking some of these attack damage nodes, and really beelining for these spear nodes. We took some of the accuracy point ones, and I'll explain that a little bit as to why we did that. But later on, we kind of went down this way, and then up here to grab Crimson Assault, and then we are getting these. What are these ailment ones? Actually, I don't know why I put this one right there. I should have that right there to do more ailment damage. But it is what it is. First of all, I will explain why we took these nodes and why it's a mistake. So originally, with our Amazon Ascendancy, I actually chose to go Critical Strike first. And I was hoping that with enough accuracy and things like that, we would be able to start critting consistently. But unfortunately, as usual with crit, you do need to invest quite a bit into it to make it good and consistent. So I ended up unspecking off of that and going into Predatory Instinct, which I think will just be a much more smooth experience for everybody. So I would recommend everybody who is starting off as Huntress, don't go this one first. Don't go Critical Strike first. It's probably not going to work out very well. Go Predatory Instinct if you are doing the Bleed Huntress. And as a result, I need to unspec off this. But as you can see, we are a poor boy, so we have no money. So I need to eventually unspec off of these. But that is kind of why we went with our current tree setup. I'm not entirely sure if this is the best setup or not. I'm pretty sure it's not. But this is kind of what we're doing. Now, one thing I will mention, and I think this is a very important one. I took Crimson Assault. Now, what this does is it makes all the bleeding that I do aggravated. But it makes my base bleeding duration 1 second, which is really bad because how bleeding works is it's a damage over time thing. So it's a DPS number. So basically usually bleeding, I think it's like 5 seconds, right? 5 seconds long. And then it will do that amount of certain amount of DPS over that 5 seconds. Let's say your bleeding does 10 DPS, right? If it does it for 5 seconds, that's 50 DPS. But if you turn the duration down to 1 second, it's not that it does that 50 damage in 1 second. It'll take the 10 DPS per second, and instead of doing it for 5 seconds for 50 damage, it will do it for 1 second for 10 damage. But luckily it is aggravated, so it will do more damage, so 100% more. So instead of doing the 10 damage, it will do the 20 damage because it is a 2x multiplier for when it's aggravated. Now, the one thing to note here, and the reason why I took this, is because right now my character is pretty weak while I'm doing the story. It will take me like 2 to 3 attacks to actually be able to kill anything, even the white mobs. So it's gonna be a couple hits, and as a result, the Crimson Assault 1 second duration isn't that much of a downside because you're constantly hitting the enemy. Now, if you were later on in the game, right, and you could kill an enemy with 1 hit and then it gets bleeded out with that 1 hit, then if you reduce the the bleed duration of 1 second, then you might not be able to 1-hit that enemy. So while you're in the story, Crimson Assault is actually a pretty good node to have because it gives you a front-loaded amount of damage, and then you're just going to refresh that constantly, right? And that's going to do a lot more damage than if you were to have a bleed that was lasting 5 seconds, because you can't stack bleeds. They're not going to stack on top of each other. You're just refreshing the duration. So that's why I'm using this right now. But of course, if you have items that are going to help you with their bleed duration, like, you know, Beetle Bite, or maybe you have something like the chest armor that gives you aggravated bleeds on hit, that will be perfect, and you won't need to take this at all. This is basically just replacing that. And if you have one of those, then that will be perfectly fine, and you won't have to take this negative downside of the bleeding duration as 1 second. But for anybody else who does not get lucky and did not get that chest armor or the boots, or maybe it's this new spear that always aggravates bleeds, well, unfortunately, you're going to deal with this Crimson Assault. But yeah, that's kind of explaining why I went the choices that I went, and just giving you a PSA to 1, take this Predatory Instinct, and also 2, if you're in the story, if you don't have the uniques, this is a very, very good note. But yeah, I'm still learning a lot about this kind of playstyle and this class, so I wouldn't really say I'm like an expert or anything like that. But I just wanted to give you guys a recounting of what my day one was like and what I did to get to where I am. I'm sure things will evolve tomorrow when I continue playing the game a little bit more and learn a little bit more about the class as well. But I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of an update to what I'm doing in case you wanted to follow along with what I am building and how I'm building my character. But yeah, there it is. Again, I will be streaming tomorrow, normal times, not the entire day, starting at 10 p.m. PST. So come hang out with me there. But until next time, guys, hopefully you guys will hit the sub button so I can see you guys on the next video. All right, guys, peace.